First, we must ensure we are logged in to the Oracle Container Registry and have checked out the WLS 14 image. This accepts the terms and conditions and allows the offer to deploy successfully. I have already logged in using a pre-created identity. I will search for WebLogic here. And there it is, WebLogic server. And it says I last accepted the terms and conditions on July 27th. That means I am sufficiently authenticated and have the necessary agreements in place to continue using the work. I'm going to create a user-assigned managed identity. I will go to the Azure portal and type in managed identities, select the suggestion, and select create. I will create a new resource group to hold the user-assigned managed identity. And I will choose a region, East US, and I will use the same name as the resource group for convenience. Create. Validation passed. This is a general pattern you will see with the Azure portal, where you fill in a number of fields and then it will do a validation step. If I select create, it will actually do the action that has been validated. We must grant this user-assigned managed identity the contributor role in the subscription. To do that, I will select Access Control, IAM. I will select Add Role Assignment to the subscription, and the role will be contributor. Save. Now I will obtain the fully qualified resource identifier for the user-assigned managed identity. I visit the user-assigned managed identity in the portal, select JSON view, and the resource ID is up here. I will copy this to the clipboard. So let's escape these. And now we can go to our GitHub Actions properties. User assigned managed identity update. Paste the value. Ensure it does not contain a new line. And select Update Secret. Next, we will create a service principal with the contributor role. We're simply going to export our subscription ID, and then we're going to run the command AD create for RBAC with several arguments, and we're going to pipe that through to base 64. This is necessary because that's what our pipeline expects for the service principal. There it is. Service principal. Update. Paste the value. Ensure there's no trailing white space and select Update Secret. Now we're ready to run the workflow and select Run Workflow. Once the workflow starts, we can select it and monitor progress. We have the pre-flight stage, the deploy database stage, the deploy storage account stage, and finally, deploy WebLogic on AKS. Let's take a look at the deploy DB action as it's running. We have created a resource group. We are now using the secrets to call AZ Postgres server create with the necessary admin username and password and a SKU for the database. We're using the most basic, inexpensive SKU possible for our purposes. And we are also able to notice the storage account is running in parallel. So here we're creating the storage account, storage container, building the WAR file, and uploading it to the storage. Now the database deployment has succeeded and the storage account deployment, and we are going to deploy WebLogic on Azure Kubernetes Service with the help of the operator. Most important aspect here is the parameter file. This is a very large JSON file that has all of the necessary parameters to pass to the ARM template to update the application inside of WebLogic, inside of Azure Kubernetes Service. This step basically is applying the secrets to a parameters JSON file and then running that JSON file as the parameters for the ARM template deployment. Once that's done, we're able to use the domain in image, domain source type for WebLogic Kubernetes operator, and deploy the entire thing to the AKS. Now that the deployment has completed, we can see we have the database, the storage account, and the WebLogic on AKS. Let's review what has happened here. The longest portion was deploying the WebLogic server cluster on domain offer. It took about 40 minutes. Your mileage may vary, but you can see there's a lot of activity going on there. This is essentially deploying the marketplace offer as an ARM template, and that stands up the entire WebLogic on Kubernetes infrastructure with the pods and the operator. Then it installs kubectl so we can interact with the cluster, connect to the cluster, and apply the config map. So kubectl is the tool that lets us interact with the operator and lets us do operations on the operator itself. So once we have all of these things deployed, we have the 3 different resource groups, the Kubernetes, the database, and the storage account. Let's look at the storage account resources. That's just basically the simple storage account. The database, you can see here we've got the the Azure database for PostgreSQL. And in the AKS one, we have an app gateway. We have a public IP address for the gateway. We have the Azure Container Registry, the Key Vault, and the Kubernetes service itself. Let's make sure that cookie affinity is enabled in the application gateway. This is important because the sticky sessions that are part of Java EE applications that are stateful must be supported. We will go to HTTP settings, and our application is running on port 8001, so we just need to make sure that this is set to enable for both of the rules that are automatically created by the offer. That's correct. Now let's return to resource groups and take a look at the application itself. One way to get there is going to the public IP address of the gateway. So I will just hover over this and click copy to clipboard. And in a new tab, I'll paste it and append the context path of cargo tracker. Press enter. We see that the cargo tracker application is running. Let's route some cargo. First, we'll go to the mobile event logger. So I have provided a bit.ly URL. If one of you from the demo wants to go there, you can go to https://bit.ly and EJB 081101C as in Charlie. And if you do that on your phone and select mobile event logger, it will give you a nice phone interface, and I can actually have you try that. Go to the administration interface, and we're going to deal with some routed cargo. So this cargo has been routed, and it's going from Hangzhou to Stockholm, and right now it's on board carrier, and we'd like to get it there by August 29th. So go over to the tracking interface and select JKL567 and select next, and we want to go to the next phase in the workflow. So let's click on this. We're going from Hangzhou to New York. So we'll select New York, select next, and we would like to unload the cargo there. Select next and choose the voyage of 0100S. Select next, and we'll put the date as Monday. Select next, and then select submit. Event submitted. That goes into a JMS queue. Well, let's go back to the dashboard, and we'll see that now this has been in port at New York, last known location. So the next step is to take it from New York to Dallas. So we'll go and do this again. Tracking ID, next. We're in New York, and we would like to load. Select next. 02T, and we'll do that on the 17th. Next and submit. Event submitted. Go back to the dashboard. We see now that it's on board the carrier, and we can just continue going through this workflow. Now we're in New York to Dallas, so we want to unload the cargo in Dallas. JKL567. Next, we are going to go to Dallas and unload there. 0200T. And I'll put that next Thursday. Submit. And we reload the dashboard. Now see that we're in port in Dallas. I'm not going to go through the rest of it, but let's just take a little quick look at the live field. And we can see we have live map tracking. So our JKL567 is right there, last known location, Dallas. Now let's show how we can make an update and do a source to runtime rolling deployment. We will discover the version number of the present deployment by just looking at this muted text here and noting that it is 2.1 snapshot 2021-08-11 0235. Now we can show how to update the app using a different pipeline. First, we'll need to get the deployment secret for the Azure Container Registry. We go to the resource group that contains the Kubernetes. We go to the Azure Container Registry and we select access keys. And we'll copy that here. Then we'll go to the pipeline and go to the repository settings and choose secrets. And we have to update the Azure ACR, Azure Container Registry password. And we'll click Update Secret. Now we can select the Update Cargo Tracker pipeline and select Run Workflow. We will need to update a few parameters here. The first is the resource group of the AKS cluster. The next is the storage account name, where the previous pipeline has uploaded the WAR. The next is the container within that storage account, where the WAR has been uploaded. The next is the login server of the Azure Container Registry, where the updated domain image should be stored. And finally, the username of the ACR. When you combine these information with the existing secrets and the Azure Container Registry password we just set, it allows the workflow to run and update the Cargo Tracker application. While the pipeline runs, let's examine the workflow itself. We set up JDK 8, we installed JQ. We'll be using that to do some querying. We are going to check out Cargo Tracker and build it again. And when we build it, that date stamp will be updated to the build time. It's a build timestamp that's put there on the first page. We then obtain the version string for the deployment, and we now upload the app to the storage account and query the web app blob and set that value to get the build stamp so we can compare it. Then we upload the image to ACR, connect to the AKS cluster, and update the image path. This is where we're doing the kubectl command to update the version to the new one that we've just uploaded. Then we verify that all the pods are updated. This is because Kubernetes is doing the rolling update to apply the update. And then we obtain the application gateway URL, and then we run a playwright test to verify that the version number is correct. So let's take a look at that playwright test now. We can see a very simple playwright test, and then we compare the version that is there with the one that was there previously and assert that the version has been updated, otherwise the test fails. And the pipeline has now completed successfully. You can see we have a new update here. We've even updated the snapshot to be shown on the bottom of the page. So previously this was 8/11/02/38, and now it's 8/11/20/39.